So with that said, I will turn this over to Clark Cooning, MMR, for our after show. Clark, welcome.
Welcome. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
It's been a long day here. It's been a beautiful day, and I've been out staining and painting a 20 by 40 foot deck. So it's been not that fun.
Clark, before you start, just wanted to make a comment. Jim made the comment that the new Thursday night show was going to be available on StreamYard. Actually, StreamYard is the tool that you use. It will be available on YouTube as a stream. So all you have to do is go to the New Track site and you'll be able to see it as a stream there. But it's not going to be done as a Zoom meetup where there's a whole bunch of people on screen. It's just going to be limited to basically, you know, the four or five people on screen that are part of the program that night. And it's more similar to what you see on YouTube for kind of streaming content versus this, which is kind of more meeting. Anyway, I didn't want anybody to think that you had to go out and get StreamYard to see it. All you'll have to do is go to YouTube and you can see the whole thing there.
It'll be like watching Johnny Carson.
It will be, except it'll be sexier.
Okay, but won't be any good because there won't be any Rodney Dangerfield. But anyway,
What time will that?
Karnak says it'll be sexier.
What time that night will it be on?
7 p.m. Eastern.
There you go, 7 p.m. Eastern. So, all right, who's here? That's maybe new. And I know I don't want to say who's here that's old because you're all old.
All of us.
That's right.
Just go down the list, Clark, pick one.
I know, and I'm like one of them. So anyway,
I ain't gonna go there.
Clark, one of the things that you'll be pleased to know, Paul Egret, in your honor, not only has he designed the service station that we're going to be building on one of the build-alongs pretty soon, he's going to completely detail the interior of it in scale just for you.
Oh, well, thanks, I think. Yeah, you know, Paul and I have this love-hate relationship going on. He sends me these fantastic models and he goes, "What do you think of this?" And I just send a note back saying, "I'm not talking to you." And then I go, "No, thank you very much." And then I print them off. I've got a whole stack of them in a folder here. So
I'll send you this. I'll send you the service station so you can add that to your file.
don't talk to this man. Oh, brother. All right. Hey, anybody want to talk about what we saw tonight? Is there any? I have and I hope nobody takes offense to this because this is just one of my pet peeves. When people say I scratch built it, a kit isn't a scratch build. It has to, you have to actually make the part and build it. So that's my pet peeve. So other people may say, but I know a lot of kit people who build fine scale miniatures. They say, well, I scratch built it. No, you built a kit. But that's my pet peeve.
If it's been personalized, then I like to use the word scratch bash.
Well, that's fine. That's a whole different story. But, I know when I'm judging contests and stuff, people say it's scratch built and you go, no, it's a standard kit. Like, what did you do? What's the scratch building part, And, but they believe just putting a kit together is scratch building, and that's not the case.
I agree with you, Clark, 100%.
How about using the word kit mingling or kit bashing with
Sure.
scratch build?
Oh,
Sure.
yeah.
Like
But
some
it's-
of the stuff I know I scratch build and the
Yeah.
rest is kit. So it's kind of combination.
Yeah, and I see it. I mean, I see it on the forums and stuff. Guys will build a nice kit, but it's a Bar Mills kit or it's a whatever, and you go, well, it's not scratch built. but a lot of people believe because it's, sticks and siding, it's scratch built. No. So, but that was a personal note, and I hope I haven't offended anybody tonight, but,
So tell me, Clark, if you go to the hobby shop, buy like your windows and doors from whoever,
right.
to fit, is that still, and you scratch build everything else, would that still be a scratch build?
Well, yeah, if you're looking at the Anna Marie
Depending
category, it's considered scratch built, but what they do is look at the percentage of the model. So if you've got 500 windows that are Grant Line windows, your
Not
percentage,
really.
it's only maybe a 60% scratch build, right?
Oh, I see. Okay.
I think
And,
Roy, maybe Roy, for just on a layout, I would call it scratch build. I'm doing a building,
Yeah,
doing the design, I'm gonna build it, but yeah, I got commercial windows.
but
for
there
it.
are a lot of exemptions in the scratch building if you want to get real technical to it. Like if you're scratch building a car, you don't have to build the trucks.
Yeah,
you know.
exactly, yeah.
But I just think people sort of overuse that term a lot, and that's just one thing for me. But anyway, yeah, I think if you say I scratch built the building and I use Grant Line windows, hey, no problem.
Yeah.
I think also you could probably say that if you, for instance, you scratch build the interior of a kit, you can use the word scratch build for what you did on the interior, like the desks and chairs.
Absolutely. But tell me what you
Right.
scratch built. Don't just say this is a scratch built model.
Right.
When
Exactly.
when it's a fine scale model or it's a Bar Mills or
Exactly.
whoever it is.
Not doing credit to the people that build the kits,
Yeah.
manufacture the kits, and that's what I feel.
And you know what? Like I say to people all the time, if you can build some of these kits, these high, a little better than basic kits, and you can do them well, that's an art in itself.
Yep.
That is good modeling.
Well, the early kits where you had to, before laser came along and all the windows are cut out in the doors and the whole wall,
Yeah.
you just got a box of sticks and some plans and some castings, and
Yeah.
you did.
Well, I don't know how many of you, there was a fellow in Ontario, he since passed away, called John Rendell.
Yeah.
And John had these kits and people would buy them because they look beautiful. You'd see his displays and you go, oh, I got to have one of those. And then they get home and they start building it. And the next thing it was at the flea market for 10 bucks because they were unbuildable.
I think he cut all his wood with an awl.
Yeah. He actually cut his own basswood.
Yeah.
And it was so rough, and his instructions, it's like anything. When you know what you're doing, if you're the kit manufacturer and you build the prototype 25 times to get it right, and you go, okay, this is what it looks like. Well, you glue A to B and then C, and then you're done. Well, the guy who's never opened a Craftsman kit before, he reads that and he goes, what is he talking about? And that's a big art. That's a big art in itself. You look at some of the really good kit manufacturers, their instructions are so that you can build the model.
Yeah.
And that really makes a big difference, really makes a huge difference. So, and I give kudos to those guys because, the hours it takes to design a model, but it takes probably 4 times as many hours to write the instructions. So
I've heard the hardest part for a manufacturer is writing the instructions. Just hand.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you guys ever seen the Sierra West model, the sawmill model of the sturgeon sawmill. And that one actually, I think it took 10 years to do the documentation for the model. It's got like 4,000 or 5,000 parts, that kind of thing. It's really interesting that there's 2 parts to this that are there's one is the aspect of building a model once you know how to build it. And then there's the taking a prototype and figuring out how to turn it into a model. I
True.
think those are two really different. I think, Clark, what's really interesting is the skill of taking somebody having already done that kind of conversion, but then building it, depending on the complexity of the model, can be incredibly complex.
Yes.
And it turns out for that model, that building to that level of detail, what you've done is aggregated the research creation across 100 modelers versus trying to do it 100 times. And it's a real, if you think about a kit at that level, what the kit manufacturer is doing is they're aggregating together two things. They're aggregating the research to build the kit and decide how to build it, the knowledge, and then they're putting an instruction process together that gets you through the process of how to assemble it.
And
And
some read it, and some read it, and some say, I don't need instructions.
But I guess what I'm saying is that, there's this, but there's a point at which you got that, you know how you're going to build a kit. So Martin says, I'm going to build something. He kind of got some steps in there. Sometimes he may start with no steps, which is kind of a different process, or maybe that's more of a process. I don't know. Got to decide which one.
Precess.
A precess. But basically, yeah, there you go. It's a precess. With a precess, you start with nothing. But it's an interesting thought process about the value of those in different areas.
Yeah.
Of the, the creation versus the construction process.
Yeah. Well, even
I don't know about the rest of you guys, but I built a couple of kits that were basically hand-drawn pictures and wood.
Yeah.
If it hadn't been for a bunch of other kits, I wouldn't have known how to build it. That's what I would term a craftsman kit, when all you get is a sketch and a bunch of wood, and you're supposed to build something with it. So it can be quite challenging for a new person to get one of those kits and to have to figure out how to build it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just
Absolutely.
had exactly that experience. I've built a number of Bantas kits, the large production ones, and they're quite good. I think he builds the kit several times. He uses that to write his instructions. He photographs it for the kits that he produces lots of. But I recently got his kit for the Vance Junction section house, which is one of his on order only kits rather than, a standing one. He cuts it to order, and it comes with a single page printed on both sides. That's all the instructions you get. So you have to put together a few other kits to be able to assemble this one.
Well, and I don't want to speak for Bill, but I do know Bill and I know the kits. When he bought the company, there was a number of those kits just like that. So he then kind of took a few of the favorite ones and maybe upgraded them. And then the ones he's designed, he's done the full, program on it. And that's why they're to order. But, and I don't want to speak for Bill. Bill will be on, I forget when Jim has scheduled them, and we can ask him about that. But I know from the other owners, because I happen to know who they were, they were dealing with much more experienced modelers. So therefore, that's what you got.
And that explains a lot.
Yeah,
I'm
there's
glad it
another
wasn't
one.
the first Banta kit I tried to assemble.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's another manufacturer in the Northeast. I won't mention the name, but he does beautiful, beautiful kits, but he lacked instructions. So he got another manufacturer after a while. It was a friend of his to do the instructions or proofread them. But he felt that the people that were going to buy his kit were as experienced as he was. So I think it was headed for a market for experienced people, but maybe that's not the right thing.
And yet we have a common person that we also know, Larry, and I'll just say R&R,
Yeah.
who built beautiful structures, and they're very detailed instructions.
Yeah.
So
Clark, if you take a set of blueprints or instructions from a kit
yeah,
and build, scratch build from those
Oh.
instructions. Is
Yeah.
that scratch building?
Sure. If you go out and acquire the parts, right, and don't use the kit, that's scratch building.
Right, yeah.
I mean,
Hey,
that's
Gary,
that's
hey,
no
Gary,
different.
just, hey,
Yes.
Gary, you stole my question. I was about to ready to say it.
Yeah. Well, it's the same as going through MR and say, "Oh, look at the plans. I'm going to build this through the article." Well, it's still scratch building.
I've taken a number of Campbell instructions
Yeah.
and built kits,
Yeah.
which are scratch built from their instructions.
Yeah.
And I classified them as scratch built.
And you go back to Campbell. They were the Athern of wood structures, back when. And then laser cutting came in and so forth. But really, when you look at the Campbell kits, man, they're still very, if they're done well, very few Campbell kits that aren't fantastic kits.
Yep. Cut my teeth on those at the Railway Club, DNR.
Yeah.
We used to buy a lot of those.
Yep.
Because they were available to us.
Yep. And so yeah, it's kind of a neat, it's kind of a neat evolution of structures and kits that has happened in the many years. And we're seeing it again now with 3D printing. We're seeing it again now with 3D printing. Phil has done some stuff at home. There are new manufacturers coming on board. They're not only doing like mini prints, they're doing people and stuff, but this Yelton Models is doing homes and O scale and HO and all kinds of stuff. So it's really changing the hobby. But I would say the biggest changes have been the laser cutter to date.
So is laser cutting scratch building?
If you're doing the drawing and the cutting, yes, it just becomes a tool.
Mhm.
Because you still have to be proficient in doing it, right?
Designing
And you still have to assemble it.
programming and assembly. Yes,
yeah.
yes.
So
Yeah, I definitely agree on the
I
laser
don't know, let
cutting.
me see. Yeah, I know.
People who built in the past certainly remember the day when you opened a kit and it was stamped wood with the
Oh, yeah.
door openings and the window openings were just stamped partially through, and you had to finish cutting out each one and try not to crack the sides while you did it and so forth. I had the recent experience for the fun of it. I
One of
got
the
a
guys that-
Campbell kit
one of the
from
guys on the model
1970
railroad
and
thing.
built it. And let me tell you, you really appreciate the quality of the new kits when you put together a 1970 Campbell kit. I built the Triangle Cafe and it finished up pretty nice when it was done, but it was a very different experience building it.
well, I think most of us, I may maybe make a little generalization, but started with Gauls airplanes, wooden balsa airplanes,
God,
and
yeah.
and the wing ribs would come sort of stamped. And you'd open it up and go, oh, how many kits have they made from this stamp? Like, it's just making an outline now in the balsa wood. It wasn't even cutting the wood. Oh man.
I think one thing you got to remember, Clark,
Yeah.
I think one thing you got to remember with some of these kits that are very complicated, it does train you on how to start scratch building on your own. It gives you some idea what you should do and how to do it.
Oh, absolutely.
It's a beginning for you to move ahead. And the more of them
Absolutely.
you do, the better you get.
Yeah, and that is totally usually the step. You usually go from a plastic kit to maybe kit bashing to a laser kit. From a laser kit, you go to scratch building type of progression, more or less. I'm not saying that's for everybody, but that's how most people progress. And so, or do it in brass.
Who
Okay,
is that?
Clark,
Yes, sir.
that's a low bow kit
Yeah,
from about 1948,
right.
52, somewhere there. That's the post-war version of it. And that was a kit.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
would test your soul.
Yes.
Because that's not light brass. These parts are bronze. Yeah, so I got this, and this entire corner was broken. Someone had dropped it, and this part was missing. Had to make it, had to repair the band, but yeah, my soldering iron doesn't have enough oomph to repair this. I had to use one of my torches to put it back together. So,
Well,
Nice job, Martin.
yeah.
well,
no,
when I got it, I thought, well, I looked at it and I thought, well, I saw the broken part. I thought, well, that's not a mortal wound. I can probably fix that with enough clamps and some ruby flux and some good solder. I thought, and I made the only mistake I made was thinking, oh yeah, well, I don't want to use the torch because I'm afraid I'll have
Melt everything else off.
I'll knock other pieces off. And I just put the torch in there anyhow, because the soldering iron wasn't going anywhere. It's just laughing at me. So
I hate when that happens.
yeah, this is sort of on the scope of the building a locomotive workshop kit.
Yeah.
So there's a name for the O-scalers in the room. Anybody who's aware of what those were like, you got a shoebox, and you opened it up and you said, "Who sent me a box of scrap metal?"
Well, I'll tell you a story similar to that. Larry knows the story better than I do, but a common friend of ours, him and his wife were driving around out in Pennsylvania, and they like to go to all these hobby shops, and they went into one of their favorite hobby shops. When we got there, there's a guy out there sweeping, and burned down to the ground basically the day before.
Oh yeah,
Oh, God.
yeah.
I don't know if we told this story, but
Yeah.
Larry, you want to
Yes.
take it from there a little bit?
I think we told it before,
Oh,
but
okay. Well, some other guys, maybe just a short version.
Well, hey, on your instructions front, the locomotive workshop instructions are the most fun. So I have a Pennsylvania Railroad H1. It's a little tiny 280, 1880s, 1890s. The instructions for assembling that were 2 pages. Single, double spaced, printed on one side each.
Yeah.
Things like assemble the mechanism. That's and yeah, that's the way those instructions are. Assemble the cab, assemble the boiler, add the details.
You're done.
Yeah, pretty much. Except you tried to do that and you found out that the drive mechanism was impossible, physically impossible to operate, or to even install. So it makes it an adventure.
I have one of the newer, was it 70-ton box cabs from Grant Line before they went out of business. And they have a different motor, because I had the old set and I put those together without any problem. They ran great. The new one, I still am, I pull it out every once in a while and look at it and go, okay, what is he trying to tell me in these instructions? So.
Yeah. Yeah, well, instructions, that's always been one of my personal pet peeves. People write 2 pages for when there should be 50, or they leave out every other sentence that should have been there, or they skip ahead and forget. Like, well, they presume that everybody knows as much as they do.
Yeah, yeah.
And I've always, it's like they need to be beta tested.
Well,
you have to hand it blind to somebody and say, here, build this and tell me why my instructions are, if they're any good.
Yeah, I know our friend out in BC, Interaction, he has them as number of his kits beta tested as he goes, and
And then you can at least feel confident that you're selling something that people can actually build.
Yeah.
and a lot of fun.
Yep, theoretically, you actually have fun doing it too.
Yeah.
It's possible.
Maybe that's what you do when you send one to Bob Brown, free, put together.
Yeah.
Has anyone here gotten one of the Stevenson model, like the engines to assemble?
Stevenson Preservation,
Yes,
Yes.
I've known one or two people to actually build them.
I've got one, and
It's a cross between Lobau and Locomotive Workshop.
yes. And we put it together, we got the trucks working, and it's a, oh, I forget now, anyway. It was missing the base for the locomotive part.
Yeah, there you go. That helps.
Now I have to get a hold of it. It's been sitting for so long. If I tell him it's missing, he'll say, really? I don't care. I'll pay for it.
He's a pretty reasonable guy, actually.
Yeah, I don't mind. I just let it sit too long.
Yeah, I always stop by his table in Chicago.
It was a challenge. I thought I'd get one and try it.
Hey, Larry, you look like you're
Yeah, I was going to mention that.
you look like you're in the
Pages.
Frankenstein horror
Twilight Zone.
movie,
I don't know.
Yeah, he's in the
I got a
Twilight.
sun lamp on my computer here. I am in the dark. Just
Turn
getting
the light on.
I'm just getting the glow off.
That would help.
Well,
Turn a light on.
well, that's like that's what people say to me all the time. How come you're in the dark? I said, well, because I have the face for radio. But,
Just like that.
Well, I'm getting ready. I do a midnight show.
with Elvira.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
Yeah,
Should we stop streaming?
Hey, Martin, you were talking about soldering. I picked up a soldering iron from Canadian Tire. It's a Weller. And I'm looking at this thing and think, oh, yeah, that'll do what I want to do. For soldering a bunch of brass and stuff together. And so I hold down the button. And well, this thing must have a lot of wattage. The end is glowing. And I looked at it, it's up like you can get 900 watts out of this baby. And the reason for it is that they want you to be able to solder the silver solder. But I'll tell you, when you're doing wires onto track and you put a couple of heat sinks on,
It's instant.
on,
Instant.
on and off, and you don't destroy anything. It's so quick. A lot
Yeah.
better than
And-
using a 25-watt iron on your track.
But those things aren't light either.
Oh, no, they're like, yeah.
Oh, it's not a pencil.
No.
Oh,
Oh,
No,
no.
no,
Oh,
it's,
no.
it's,
it's like the old master.
it's induction.
craft
It's an
gun.
induction one.
Jesus.
Yeah, it's almost instant heat. It's induction.
Yeah.
So I just find they're so much faster if everything's clean and ready
Oh,
for
yeah.
soldering wires onto your track. It's like almost instant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll
And
tell you,
you
the
don't
first
destroy
time
the ties.
The first couple of times I tried resistance soldering,
Oh.
I had a foot pedal, and it is totally the opposite of a standard soldering iron. The soldering
Yeah.
iron is hot. You apply the heat. You touch this, a resistance. You actually have to put the two things, then apply the power. Do not pull the needle off of the piece of track without turning the power off, because man,
Yeah.
I had lightning in the basement. Scared my little self.
That's the entertainment portion of the program.
Oh, you know what?
Yeah.
I unplugged it and went upstairs and went, oh my God.
You can vaporize little parts with it too.
Oh man.
They just disappear.
Yeah. But now, I don't have it anymore. I actually traded it away, but because I really didn't have any use for it anymore. But now I'm thinking maybe I should have kept it if I'm going in a
Brass.
Proto 48.
Yeah. But you have to get a Proto 48 one.
Yeah, that's right.
Roy, on your soldering gun, Weller, you're just using the tips that come with them?
Yeah, that's all I've used so far.
Yeah. A lot of
Have you
guys,
got a better suggestion?
the fellow he was Clark was referring to about going to that hobby shop that had burnt. And he recovered a lot of pieces and built many locomotives, but he uses it. But he used to take, I think it was 12 gauge wire, copper wire, and bend it and then just flatten the end at the end and put that in rather than the ones.
Oh, I see. Yeah, yeah,
The
yeah.
ones they give you are, if I'm right, I think they're, they're metal of some sort and they got an alloy surface on them.
Yeah.
But, and the new Wellers, the only thing I don't like from the old ones, they used to have like a collar on it, threaded. And when you put the tips in, you would tighten it down. Nowadays, they got little set screws and I've broken those darn things off. And,
Yeah, that's easy enough to do.
yeah.
Yeah, I haven't had to change the tips. So I didn't even look at it that much, except for I always know if you're going to do a lot of soldering, you haven't used it for a while, make sure the tip things are properly put down, make sure they're good and tight. Otherwise you won't get the heat you should get out of it.
Right.
Yeah, those two little nuts, you gotta make sure they're tight.
Yep.
Yeah. So if you got an older one, you got, the nuts, these set screws, I do not like them. So, but
Yeah, I can understand that. Yep.
Where'd you go, Clark?
I'm just up, so you guys don't need to see me wandering around.
Oh.
put your clothes on.
Put
Ah.
on Sarah pants.
So what are you doing?
I'm actually feeding my fish.
Yeah.
Yeah, Martin, this,
That's what they're calling it now.
Yeah.
yeah, the fellow we're referring to, Martin, it was Harold Midwood. And so one of the guys in our group is a collector of brass locomotives, but he wanted it changed to another number. So he brought it over to Harold to work on it. And so we were all gathered around on Wednesday evening. So Harold says, well, first of all, we got to strip it. And the fellow started to shake. Well, Harold had a old fashioned piano stool that the little seat used to spin.
Yeah.
And so he just put a piece of metal on there, put the locomotive boiler and that on there. Just got a torch, the large torch with the tanks that you use for
Right.
household plumbing. And he
Yeah.
just started turning the stool and
Oh, shit.
everything just came undone. And he says, there, now we can start and we can build a locomotive.
Oh, God.
But he
That was
was,
deconstruction.
yep, but he had no worries.
Well,
Building,
that's what it probably panicked.
well,
What are
the
you doing?
fellow that owned the locomotive, the look on his face was priceless.
That would have been useful. If you'd had your cell phone there with a capture of that on film.
Yeah, it was about a $1,500 locomotive but when he finished, he got a locomotive that was better than what the original product was, more piping, all the piping inside the cab. And the cab was made so it could take on and off for painting with screws underneath, because that's a pet peeve.
Yeah.
You get locomotives, you pay that much and you can't get the cab off, so.
When I first got into model railroading, I used to do custom painting for brass. And someone had told me that if you paint the model and put it in the oven at a they didn't say a low temperature.
Yep.
Yeah.
So what I had done was I painted a beautiful Pacific, put it in the oven to bake it at about 350 degrees. Went in about a half hour later to get it. And there was an awful lot of number of pieces laying all over.
Yeah.
Yep.
I have a story.
That locomotive came out, stripped, resoldered all back together,
We have a fellow,
repainted and sold.
yeah, we have a fellow, Clark would know him, he's in our region, I won't mention his name, but he was doing custom painting for a hobby shop down this way. And so I think it was like 60s were in the shop. So he was painting a bunch of them for customers that through the shop. So he painted about 4 or 5 of them and he put them in the oven. He had them on really